Queen, and welcome to 30 and Thriving. I am your co-host, Nyasha Mzazi. I am a woman empowerment enthusiast. I'm a certified life coach, and I'm a girl's girl. So this podcast is a sisterhood, a safe space for women that are navigating their 30s or women that are about to get into their 30s. On this podcast, we discuss all things life, love, relationships, spirituality, and all things in between. And I'm excited to be joined by my co-host, Salome. Before we get into it, she's going to introduce herself. But if this is your vibe, if you have been looking for a safe space, to navigate your 30s, then please like, subscribe, and share this podcast because this is the place where you want to be in 2026. So I'm going to hand over to my co-host, Salome, because I'm so excited to have her join me on this podcast.
Hi, everyone. I hope you guys are doing absolutely amazing. I am Salome, and I am a medical doctor. I'm also an aspiring entrepreneur, and I'm a girl girl. So when Nyasha extended the invitation to be here, it felt like home. So in this podcast, we're just women in their 30s. We're just figuring it out. So welcome home.
Thank you so much. Like, I'm so excited. This feels like we're giving people an insight into the
Yeah.
girls group chat, right?
Yes.
Like people want to understand, what does it mean being in your 30s? Because there are a lot of, connotations, or I can say conversations around being in your 30s, like when you get to 30, you should be married, you should have a thriving career, you should have kids, there are just a lot of pressures that come with being in your 30s. I remember someone telling me that, being in your 30s feels like it's like a life sentence because at that point you should have everything figured out. And, today's episode, we just want to dive into, our first year in our 30s, some of the things that we have encountered, and basically how it's been, so we can just share our insight.
Right. So I turned 30 this in 2025. So it's like 6 months into my 30s. And I feel like when I was in my 20s, I experienced most of my adulting. And I spent a whole decade focusing on my career. So I was just trying to achieve this big goal, this whole thing, and wanting this career. And I went through a lot because I went through failure. I went through, figuring it out. I went through a lot of rejection, whether it's from a job that I wanted, whether it's from people just saying no. There was just a lot going on when I was in my 20s, and I thought by the time I reached 30, I would have achieved certain things, and I would be, I'll be a bit stable. But turning 30, I had to face some hard truths. Like I turned 30 when I can't say my lowest, but I turned 30 at a time where I wasn't expecting certain things to be the way they were. Right. So when I turned 30, I was single, by single as in not married.
Oh, you were with someone?
Well, let's not get into that, but I was single. I was jobless at 30, and I was like sort of like resetting my life and starting over. So there was a lot of pressure on me. Yeah, when I turned 30, like there was just a lot of pressure.
And it's very funny because for me, when I turned 30, I was so excited. And I think everyone was actually surprised because there is that burden that you carry, that other people carry for you, actually, because they're like, okay, why are you this excited when you're turning 30? You don't have a husband, you don't have your biological clock is ticking, and maybe your career is not something to write home about, So when I turned 30, honestly, I was excited. And I remember people telling me, oh, now that you're 30, you have to have done this, this, and that. And I remember Googling on ChatGPT, and I asked, what's the big deal about turning 30 anyway? Right? And, ChatGPT also respond like, oh, there are pressures, you're expected to have done this, and that.
Right.
And then for me, it actually brought it into context, like, okay, so now I'm now resetting my life. I'm entering into a new season. So for me, that's how I understood it. Like getting into your 30s, you are getting into a new season, and it requires a lot. But one thing for sure is it's not a destination, because most
True.
people think the moment you hit 30, like life starts and ends there. You should be married, you should be this, you should be that, right? But for me, I saw it as an opportunity to reset my life. Okay, my 20s were not that serious. Yes, I had a thriving career, which I still do have. But for me, life was just a vibe.
You were cruising.
I was cruising
It was
nicely.
soft life vibes.
Yes. So now I understood the fact that, okay, I'm now entering into a new season, and it requires a new nyasha. And like it's just like you're moving from summer, you're getting into winter. If you had summer dresses, now you had to have winter coats and everything. So it required something from me, and I really had to reflect on that. So for me, that's where the reset came, with getting into my 30s. And it was now so hard to convince everyone around me that, you know what, it's not a life sentence. It's just me resetting my life from, coming from a vibe. Now I'm getting into a space where I'm like, I need to have defined goals. I need to know, where I'm going, and I need to have a plan with my life. And sometimes having a plan doesn't mean the plan doesn't change or you have to have it all figured out. It just means, you're taking it one step at a time, but it's a new season of growth, and you have to look forward to it.
Right. So I feel like we put a lot of emphasis on these age groups. Like by 30, you should have done this. By this age, you should have done that. By this age, I'll tell you, for me, I felt like in my 20s, I kind of had figured things out. By 20s, I'd laid out my life plan. I knew exactly what I wanted.
Lucky you. Well, I also knew what I wanted to do.
I knew what I wanted. I was seeing it. It was happening. I launched businesses in my 20s, right? Though that's a story for another day. But like in my 20s, I felt like I had this on lock. Like I felt like I had this.
You had it.
But then when I turned 30, it felt like I'm now resetting and going back. And it just felt like, you've been up there, and then you're just going back downhill, right? And then I think this was a personal lesson for me, that it's not really about putting an age or a timeline to things. It's about like understanding your path, understanding your journey. So the reason why let me give you a bit of context. So from a younger age, I've always wanted to be a doctor. I knew that, like I was one of those.
Without
when I grew up, I want to be a doctor.
For me, there's always been a lawyer. Like,
You're
and
right.
if you see the space that I am in, it's
exactly. So that was me. Like I just could not see myself doing anything else. And then I went to college studying medicine. And then after medicine, it's like, that life after graduation, that's like
hectic.
Yeah. And you're like, so what's next? What now? And people will start giving you different art. Oh, do this, do that. And fortunately, I then started growing interest in business. And I did so. I just never knew I had it in me to sell things, like to market. I knew nothing about business. Like even from family background, none of my parents are like business savvy or things like that. But like I was just really so good at it. And then I started doing business. I'm like, oh, I'm so good at this. I could actually do this. But at some point, I put like sort of like a pause on my medical career, and then I started focusing on that. But then it felt so empty. It felt like it's not me. It's not there. So that's when I now had to go back to start like, continuing and, like really figuring like, what am I doing? What do I really want? So I feel like it's not really about putting timelines, but at least that was the lesson for me. It's not really about putting like timestamps to when I turn 30, I should be this, but it's about understanding your your life path and living with intention in everything that you do.
And I think the amazing thing that you just mentioned, the beauty of, changing your mind and not feeling the pressure from it. Because we feel like just because you are this new age, you can't go back on any decision that you have made.
Right. Yes.
So if you had done your medical school, I think people would actually bash you if you said, I no longer
Now,
want to be a
yeah, I
medical
want to
doctor.
do content creation. Like
What?
at some
You
point, I
know?
was even doing modeling, and I couldn't even
What?
tell my parents.
Mhm.
That
Yeah, because they're like, we took you
Yeah.
to school, you spent all those years in medical school, and now you want to change your life. But for me, I've also seen that, that's the beauty of life. It's ever changing.
Right.
And as a person, you're also ever evolving. Hence, you resetting your life when you get to 30. Because you were this person at 20, you might have had your life all figured out. And I see some other people, they actually get married before they're 30. They
Right.
start their businesses before they're 30, and they have their life all figured out before they get to 30. And sometimes life might actually remain that way, but you
Right.
mustn't also, beat yourself about it if you get to 30 and you feel like, you know what, I want to change my mind. This
Right.
is what I've been doing, but I feel like I need to change what I have been doing. Or, if it's a career, if it's whatever decision that you feel like you want to change, it's never too late. And, you have to embrace. And I feel like that's what is growth.
Yes,
You know,
that's what growth is about.
look
It's
at a
funny you
butterfly.
speak of
Yeah.
marriage, and so when personally, I've always wanted to get married a bit later on. So marriage has never been that thing where it was like my short term or my immediate goal. I've always wanted to be, I want to do the career thing when I'm a bit stable, then I explore marriage. But looking back with what I've experienced with relationships, I would say, and I know this may sound so controversial, and I would say that if you find the love of your life, the earlier, the
Marry that
the
person.
better, because once your frontal lobe develops.
My mom was actually telling my sister's daughter she's about to go to college.
Yeah.
And she was like, when you get to university, make sure you find your husband there.
Exactly.
Because when you grow up, whose husband do you want to take? Like,
Honestly, once your frontal lobe, and it's a thing. It's really a thing. Once you are over 25, relationships are no longer the same. I mean, I'm not saying this is the same for everyone. Please
everyone,
get
yeah.
me right. It's not the same for everyone. But like generally you tend to, if they're red flags, you can smell them from
2 miles away.
miles away. Like
Yeah.
you can see like somebody walking into your life as a walking red flag coming
and you're like,
to you.
You are the
So
weapon
you're
formed
now
against
thinking
me.
a lot. You're now looking at like you're
Minor
now
details,
nitpicking
yeah.
each and everything, which sometimes it's okay because you want to pick the best partner for yourself.
Yeah.
But then sometimes it kind of like now just pushes you further away from
And I
that
think
it
that's
pushes you
what I love
closer.
about this conversation. We're not trying to tell people what to do, but like we're
Exactly.
sharing our experiences.
Experience, yeah.
And like we hope so many people resonate with, our experiences. But I think that's what you just said. I remember my mom telling my sister's daughter so vividly, and I'm like, you know what? You're so right.
Honestly, if you find your high school sweetheart, your college sweetheart, stick to them.
Well, life is not a love story, but I do agree with you, definitely.
Well, but also that's not to say that relationships don't work well after 25, or after 30, or after 40. I mean, they work well, but it's just that you're now looking at so many things. And also, but also at the same time, I'm also a firm believer that in your 20s, it's your time to just find yourself. Well, at least your early 20s. It's your time for you. Like, I feel like it helps if you spend most of your time focusing on you than trying to focus, or I'll give you an example of our African setting, like in this side part of the world.
Yeah.
You grew up with your parents.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't even get the opportunity to go abroad or go elsewhere
And
for college
experience
and experience
life. Yeah.
adulthood on your own. So
Yeah.
you're literally coming from your parents' house into another man's house.
Yeah.
And you don't even know what ticks you. You don't even know much about, like, you know nothing about yourself. So I feel like it helps if you take time to yourself and find you, which is something that I'm really grateful for.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that in my 20s, and I kind of enjoyed that. I enjoyed my, being by myself. I enjoyed my presence. I enjoyed my company and just being by myself. Then I feel like by the time then somebody comes into my life, I'm not perfect, but like I feel like at least, my level of self-awareness is it's okay.
It's fine.
Yeah.
And I think that's also something that people need to also understand. I do agree with you, but I would say if you can find yourself with the love of your life,
Right.
also
I
by
mean,
all
that's all
means you
good.
can, do you, boo,
Like I
but
said, before
yeah,
your frontal lobe develops, if you're looking
develops.
for
Yeah.
love, yes, please.
Yeah. So like I've also seen that, like, in your like your 30s, like I know I've just arrived into the 30s, but I've also seen that, life doesn't have a formula.
No, it
Yeah.
doesn't.
Like the fact that people think that like every age is a one size fits all. So for instance, when you're in your 20s, you're supposed to get a job or you're supposed to focus on your studies. Like people feel like every season of life is a one size shoe whatever fits all. But I feel like every person has got their journey.
Right.
And now if I reflect now, because I remember watching my friends graduate before me, and I would always, I don't know.
I know the
It would
feeling.
pain me a lot. I'm like, okay, other people are progressing. And even up to now, you see other people getting a promotion, getting that job.
Right.
And you're like, Lord, I'm
God,
30. When is it my turn? And you're seeing somebody maybe who is not even 30 yet, and they're already a manager somewhere. And you're also wondering, when is it going to be my turn? But what I've seen is life is unique. Every person
Right.
to their own. Your journeys are different. So you don't have to look at the person next door to see how they've navigated their life, because what has worked for them or what has happened in their life is going to be completely different with how your life is going to work out. And you have to stop that comparison, especially now in this new season, because 30, I know it has a weight on it.
Yeah,
Honestly,
it does.
the honest truth is you're not getting any younger.
Yeah.
That's the honest truth. But do you have to feel the burden of it being like a heavy season? No, but you have to be cognizant of the fact that, okay, I'm not getting any younger, but you need to have to embrace all the challenges that come with the new age. You have to know that, you know what, this is a journey. I don't have to compare myself to Salome. No, yeah, I have to be my own person and, trust God that He knows what's best for me, where I'm headed to. And honestly, I feel like you thrive better when you focus on your own journey.
On your own journey, yes. So I like to understand life as I want to give an example of when you make fast food and versus when you make a meal, like a filling meal.
Feeling ill, yeah.
Right? So when you slow cook meat, it's tender, it's like it's palatable. It's so
You take your time.
Yeah, you take your time, you slow cook it. It's taking in the flavor. It's meat that's slow cooked. This is the meat that you
quickly
boil and it tastes different. And so that's kind of like what life is.
Yeah.
When you try to rush God, well, I want to use God as a reference because I'm Christian, and that is the value or the faith that I believe in. So when you try to rush God into things, I'll tell you one thing: if I had gotten married at before 25,
Yeah.
I probably would have been divorced.
Yeah. Because
at the time I wasn't ready for marriage.
Yeah.
Looking back at the things I was doing at 25, or where I was or where my
Head
headspace where
was
even you know how we have the list. He should be tall, he should be handsome, he should be dark, he should have six pack. Now when you ask
majoring on
me,
the minor.
yeah, like now when you ask me,
Mhm.
probably I'll tell you, I just want a kind man.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yeah.
But at 22, I wasn't looking at a kind man. I was looking at so many. So I would say that if you understand timing
Yeah.
and seasons in your life, it really helps because when you then look back, life is lived forward but
Yeah.
understood backwards.
Mhm.
When you look back and
In
like what we're
retrospect.
doing
Yeah,
here, we're
yeah,
reflecting.
exactly.
When we're now reflecting,
Mhm.
you would see why God didn't give you that job at that time.
Yeah.
You would see why you didn't get that promotion at that
At
time.
that time.
You would see why you failed at that. Like, you know how they say, what do we call it? Character development.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's still some things that,
But you know what? The funny thing that I think we need to reset is, I think it's more of cultural norms.
Yeah, true.
The weight that comes with your 30s or even the 20s, because at some point, even when you're in your 20s, your mom or your dad, they're telling you you should be in school, you should be focusing on your studies, and maybe at that point you don't have it all figured out, and it doesn't mean you're going to remain that way, but it's because of some cultural beliefs that we hold, not just as African people,
but generally,
yeah, just in general. Like, we have these limitations and connotations when it comes to life. And I don't know, how do you think we can dismantle this cultural belief? Because honestly, I don't know, because my mom can actually see that, okay, I've got a thriving career, I'm happy, we're cruising nicely. But she would not stop saying, when are you getting married? When are you giving me grandchildren? Despite her having other grandchildren, multiple grandchildren,
Right.
So I, like, honestly, I just want us to talk about, because I don't even know, like, where do we start? Because that's the root problem. Because even if we address these challenges that come with being in your 30s, it starts from somewhere.
Right.
Yeah. And, like, I don't know, maybe you can.
Okay, so for me,
Mhm.
I think communicating that to my parents, like having conversations with my
Yeah.
parents or my family has
Mhm.
helped.
Yeah.
Right? And okay, to be honest, the pressure when it comes to marriage, most of the time it doesn't really come from my parents, really, honestly.
It's
It comes
Danielson in
from,
the
yes, it comes
saxophone.
from
People, yeah.
extended,
Yeah.
family or family friends, right? It really doesn't come from within,
Within, yeah.
because my parents have seen me gone through this excruciating journey of becoming a doctor. They have been there. They have been sponsoring. They have been supporting. They've
Yeah.
been with me. So I feel like from them, I really don't get that pressure. But the pressure then tends to come from, so what people don't understand is that things, when generations are different, right? When our parents were growing up,
Yeah.
by the time my mom was 25, I think she had my sister. Yeah, I think even by the time they were my age, my parents were my age, they had bought their first house.
Yeah.
They had two kids. They were, life was different then, even in terms of like looking at the economy then.
Yeah, things were different.
We also tend to forget that we were affected by the biggest. We are the pandemic generation, the COVID generation, So we also tend to forget things like that they had an effect and an impact on us. You look at people after college, most of the people, especially in Zimbabwe, most of the people who have graduated from college are now business owners. They are not even working,
like employed, like
they're not even employed. They're not working like
people are hustling.
Yeah, people are
to put it in
hustling.
my-
They're trying to
yeah.
make ends meet.
Yeah.
So all of those things now they come into play in when you're going to get married.
Yeah.
And
because you're asking yourself, getting married
exactly.
without a house, getting married without, like, a
a
job,
house
like,
is even far-fetched,
yeah.
because sometimes just budgeting for a monthly grocery, you
I'm
can't even
telling
do
you.
that, you
I
know.
remember there's this lady on TikTok. She
Mm.
tells people how to budget money, and she's like, okay, so now that you're earning a
At
$250
$250.
salary, this is how you budget. I'm like,
And then someone saying, what about a $50 salary?
and you realize there's actually someone who is getting that money. So like, even
Yeah.
it transcends even just the issue of marriage. Even if you want to take care of your health, because now like you're in your 30s, you have to take better care of your health, especially if you're a woman, because you want to give
Right.
birth, so you must make sure you're
You're
healthy
okay.
and you're okay for that phase of your life. Even if you don't want to have kids, you have to start taking supplements.
There's a lot.
There's a lot. But how do you focus on that with a $50 salary? Like you can't
Exactly.
even fund your own food. Like what more going to the gym,
Trust
taking
me.
supplements, So I feel like this age, honestly, you realize that you are old enough to be doing all these things, but you can't.
You're not capable
You are
of
not
doing
capable
those
of doing those
things.
things
Yeah.
because of
It's the
circumstances.
reality.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, us being or our generation being affected by a pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Worked it was actually a blessing for other people.
Yeah, in the case
And
for others.
yeah, it was a blessing for other people. I mean, for the most part, it was a blessing because now people get to work remotely.
Yeah.
People now have to just
Thank God
with your
for
phone, with your phone you can make money
Yeah.
and things like. But also, it's not a one size
Fits
fits all.
all, yeah.
So I'm saying this because probably there's somebody sitting at home and thinking, I have the phone. Yes, I have access, but still it's not working. I can't get followers on TikTok. And I'm saying this to say, like, I hear you.
Yeah.
Like, I get you because it's not for everyone.
Yeah, it's not. I have tried.
Yeah, it's
Please
not for
look
everyone.
at my TikTok. You will see I have tried to make
I
it
saw
as an
your
influencer.
post and you were like, what am I doing wrong?
I've tried the filters. I've tried no filters, like everything. But
exactly. But again, it then comes down to everything is about timing. Remember,
times and seasons.
Yeah, times and seasons. Remember, probably you're looking because there's this thing whereby you're comparing somebody's chapter 10 with your introduction. So maybe you are still writing introduction to your book, but somebody is on chapter 10 and you're now.
Please say that again. You're comparing your what?
You're comparing your introduction to somebody's chapter 10.
I'm telling you,
right.
That needs to be on a billboard because I feel like that's the main reason people are as unhappy and unsatisfied with where they are, especially when you get to 30.
Right.
I'll always come back to hitting 30 because this podcast is all about navigating your 30s.
Yeah.
So if you see someone who is dissatisfied with their 30s, someone who is resentful, or you just feel like giving up, it's because you are comparing yourself
unnecessarily.
It might not be to someone else, or it might be to something that you have heard before. So like someone told you that you should have your career figured out by 30, right? So that will always play at the back of your mind. And now with social media, always seeing people getting cars on their birthdays.
Right.
Like, so if that man has ruined my life. But anyway, I'm happy for all those that have gotten gifts and everything. I know that's their chapter 10, But I feel like the moment you always comparing your introduction to someone else's chapter 10, honestly, you're always going to feel unworthy. You're always going to feel unloved because you are looking at your life like through someone else's mirror.
Right. Okay, so on that same note of comparison, like I was saying that yes, you're comparing your chapter 10, your introduction, somebody's chapter 10. Also remember, on social media, somebody is showing you maybe 1% of their life. Right. There is the other 90.
It's called the highlight reel for a reason.
Right.
Yeah.
So you also need to take that into consideration, that focus on the things that are thriving in your life.
In your life.
Yeah. Is it your health? Are you in good shape? Some people have had surgeries. Some people have, had a lot of things happening to them. But also maybe you're just worried about that one part of your life that's not working
That's
out,
not working.
when you can focus on the other parts that are working out.
And
Yeah.
there's always something to be grateful about. There's
Mhm.
always something that, you can embrace within your journey. So don't count it like everything is not going well.
Right.
And I feel like this conversation needs an
Our
hour. But like, we have said the good and the bad, and
Mhm.
what we have experienced, just getting into our 30s. And this is a journey, man. This is just the
Right.
beginning.
It's not a
And it's not
destination,
a
it's a journey.
destination, and we're going to keep on, discussing this. And before we wrap up, I just have one question for you, right?
Mhm.
I just want to know, like, if you could speak to your 29-year-old self, what truth about your 30s would you tell her? I know you've just arrived, but like from the few months that you've experienced your 30s,
My
what truth
30s.
would you?
I think I would say to her, your 30s are gonna be like your 20s, but
Hmm.
with money.
Definitely on
Yeah,
the
I think
money.
I would tell you not to overthink, not to worry too much, and just to focus on the things that are working well.
Yeah.
And just understand the concept of timing is everything.
Yeah.
Because really, I think God has had to teach me that in the most painful way, in the
Yeah.
most devastating way, but ultimately I got the lessons.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, God, I'm okay with the lessons now. Can we get to the good part? So I also have a question for you. So my question to you is, in what ways have your priorities shifted since entering your 30s? Career, love, friendships, or just, personal development?
So I think I've mentioned this before. So in my 20s, my priorities were just like enjoying life.
Like it was vibes.
It was just vibes upon vibes. If it was a relationship, I wasn't thinking long term. It was like, okay, I vibe with this person, let's have fun. So if it was career, I was more about passion. And I'm still more about passion, but I think now my priorities have shifted to vibe, to having concrete plans. So if it's my career, now I have a plan. Where do I see myself in the next 5 years? And I need to ensure that I take the necessary steps that I reach my goals. If it's a relationship, my guy, now it's no longer vibe on vibes. The person that I'm with now is like
relationship ainamugoni.
but it's more like my
Right.
priorities have gone
It's
from
just
vibes
shifted.
to just being serious and more goal oriented, and making sure that I take the necessary steps to achieving my goals, whether it's career, relationship, friendships, in every
Right.
setting of my life.
All right. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that.
And I guess that's it until next time when we come back. And like I said before, if navigating your 30s is what you're doing right now, best believe that this is the place where you want to be. And yeah, see you next time.
See you. Don't forget to subscribe.
Subscribe.